Hello and welcome to How to Get Top Grades in Paper 1 of the Literature exam for AQA. So the examiners are on your side, believe it or not, and what they're really interested in is your ideas. These are the three main things they want. They want you to show your understanding, but to do that they really want you to write an argument. So one that begins by explaining what your ideas are, your thesis, and then paragraphs ordered in such a way as to give you an argument. And I'll show you a bit how to do that later in the video. They're treating the question as an invitation. They actually use this word like you're a guest, and they're inviting you to show off your ideas. Now what they want is for you to link your ideas together, remember, to form an argument. So you have to have a point of view about whatever the question is, and you're organising your paragraphs to prove your point of view. Now they do have a word of warning. They want to make sure that you've actually understood the question, so that your argument is about the actual question, rather than what quite a few candidates do, is they prepare an essay in advance, and they sort of pretend that the essay in the exam is asking the same question. So don't do that. Make sure that you read the question carefully and answer that. So next the examiners say, well, let's look a little bit closer at what structuring an answer might mean. The most important part, as I will show you, is the thesis. If you've never heard that term before, I have lots of videos on it, and I'm going to explain it now. The thesis is where you set out your ideas. And these are the ideas you're going to discuss in your essay, and they're also in the order you're going to discuss them, which means they're ordered at the very first paragraph, pretty much as an essay plan. Well, once you've written the thesis, it's going to be really easy to build your argument, and I'll show you soon. So let's start with what a good argument looks like. I'm going to suggest you have a minimum of 3 ideas in your thesis. And so those 3 ideas will be explained in your essay. When you're writing your essay, you're going to use this vocabulary, might, perhaps, and could, because these words are tentative and they show that you are exploring interpretations. So that's a great way to show the examiner, hey examiner, I am writing an argument. Remember that? You want to give me really high marks because I'm building an argument? Check it out. The next thing you want to do when you're building an argument is to make sure that you always end by writing about the ending of the text. Now the reason for that is all writers, every single writer in history, always introduces their final ideas at the end. So even if it's the same idea that's been all the way through the text, it will have changed slightly or dramatically by the end. And writing about that change will get you much higher marks because it will invite you to interpret why the writer has done it. Now, every time you write about why the writer has done something, your mark goes up. Now, there is some key vocabulary which will always help you write about the writer's point of view and why they've done something. It's these words here. However, although, therefore, consequently, or if you prefer, because, but, so. If you remind yourself to use one of these words in every single paragraph, you will definitely be building an argument. Why? Because all these ideas link to something that was said before or something that is coming up next. So your argument will always be linked. It won't just be a separate series of statements. They'll be linked in order to build an argument. And even if you've built that argument quite badly, because you're writing about the changes at the end, this will reintroduce a much more powerful argument. So these methods cannot fail to get you a decent grade. If you did all of these, you would never get less than a grade 6, unless you didn't answer the question. But they would also make it super easy to get grade 7 and above. So your thesis should start with the novel or play as a whole. You're looking at a really big idea that the author has. Then, once you've decided what the big idea is, you can look at the extract where aspects of the big idea will turn up. Now, what this means is that you don't start writing about the extract first. you start writing about the novel first. Now, because you want more than one interpretation in your thesis, do you remember I said you want at least 3? It can help to pose yourself a question in your thesis. And the question would be, perhaps Charles Dickens meant to show that, blah, 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 question mark. Perhaps Shakespeare meant to show that, blah, 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 question mark. Setting it out as a question might be a way for you to get into more than one interpretation. Another easy way to make sure your thesis is going to deal with the whole text is that you can make sure it refers to the ending. As I showed you before, every time you write about the ending of the novel or the play, it's going to be really easy to talk about the writer's viewpoint and purpose. Now, another thing that the examiners really don't want you to do is just to write one massive chunk on the novel and one massive chunk on the extract. You can get decent marks doing that, but you can't really get top marks doing that. It makes your essay very clunky. I know some YouTubers and some revision guides say it doesn't matter, that you don't have to write this as an argument, that you can write about the extract and then you can write about the rest of the text and it doesn't matter. Well, guess what? The examiner's reports say it does matter big time. If you want really good marks, you have to try and write about the extract at the same time as writing about the novel. The easiest way to do that is to write about the big ideas in the novel, the ones that are relevant to the question, and then bring in the extract as and when there's an idea or quotation in there that fit your argument about the big idea. Let's look at some concrete examples. I'm going to show you one from Macbeth, one from Romeo and Juliet, one from A Christmas Carol, and one from a Jekyll and Hyde. Now, obviously, you'll learn a lot more by going through each of them, but if you just want the one for your text, skip ahead. So here is a thesis on ambition in Macbeth, and it's about the character Macbeth. Although the motive for regicide must include Macbeth's ambition, many readers wonder whether Lady Macbeth's ambition is more important. A further question is actually whether ambition alone is enough to explain Macbeth's tragedy, or whether the more powerful cause is, and then you insert whatever you think. You might think it's the witches, or his bloodlust, or that he's actually insane, or that it is his love of Lady Macbeth, or some other view that you have. Well, what you'll see here in my colour codes is that I have put in 4 ideas. Now, this thesis is already going to bring me quite a lot of marks, because I'm showing the examiner that I'm constantly thinking about the author's purpose. You know, what is Shakespeare actually saying about ambition here, and its link to tragedy? The other thing you'll spot is it is an essay plan. First, I'm going to write about Macbeth's ambition, then I'm going to look at Lady Macbeth's ambition and see if actually that's more powerful than Macbeth's. Then I'm going to look at ambition alone and say, actually, if we take both their ambition together, does that actually result in the tragedy? Or is there a more powerful cause? My personal favourite, which I go to, is bloodlust, but you don't have to. And then obviously I'm going to look at the ending of the play and link it to whatever my personal favoured interpretation is. So my thesis is fantastic. It means that I've written a plan. It also means that I've kind of planned this thesis in advance. I can make 4 or 5 of these for each text I study and know that I'll be able to adapt them whatever the question. It's a really easy way to revise. Let's see what that looks like in Romeo and Juliet. Let's imagine the essay is on the role of fate. How does Shakespeare present the role of fate? In all tragedies, heroes are the victims of fate, which we see from the first words in the prologue. However, Shakespeare may also call this into question because Romeo and Juliet's immaturity may be a much more powerful force in their tragic deaths. So this is where I'm asking myself a question. This is where I'm using the tentative language suggested by the prologue's star-crossed lovers. The family feud and the immaturity of both the Montague and Capulet parents might suggest that their fate is caused by patriarchal society rather than God. Now again, you will notice I have 4 ideas which I've colour-coded, and in exactly the same way these ideas form my plan. You'll also notice that I've started using those words which are always going to force me to look at interpretations. Here's the word however, here's the word because. So once I start using these ideas all the time, I know I'm going to get more marks. I can instantly see I should have put may in here. Did you spot that? There it is now. Let's now see it in action with A Christmas Carol. So we could be asked about the importance of the Cratchits. Many readers see the Cratchits as symbols of the poor in society. Consequently, Dickens wants readers to sympathise with them and consider donating to charity. Beyond that, perhaps they are also figures of fun, who Dickens wants us both to laugh at and pity. They also help carry the Christian message of the story and link this to what might be the novel's most important message, the reader's Christian duty to pay a fair wage. So again, hopefully you've spotted my tentative language, like perhaps and might, and you've spotted those words linking my argument together, like consequently, and you can see again 4 related points that I'll go through as the structural plan for my essay. Now it's worth pointing out that all of these highlighted points, just as they were in Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth, are about the writer's point of view. And if I'm writing about the writer's point of view, I can't really get less than a grade 6. It would be impossible. Let's now look at the duality of man in Jekyll and Hyde. And by the way, the duality of man is something that the examiners point out students don't really understand very well at all. So this is very much worth revising. Stevenson shows that we are all a combination of good and evil. This plays into the Christian idea of original sin, represented by Hyde, and the need to overcome this so that our dual nature is a constant battle between good and evil impulses. However, the ending of the novel and Stevenson's refusal to live in England also suggests that this Christian interpretation is wrong, and that our primitive natures are far freer and superior once released from middle-class Christian hypocrisy. Now, this interpretation of mine is probably, well, it's almost definitely not one that you've been taught, but that doesn't matter. It still illustrates these same lessons. We have 4 points that are linked but develop an argument. We still have the tentative language. So we still have the tentative language that I've just snuck in, may also suggest, and we have this vocabulary that links ideas together, the use of however, and so. Now hopefully that's convinced you to spend your revision by writing a few thesis statements. You can post some in the comments below for me to see and comment on if you like. And if you would like some more videos that help you get the top grades, why not check out the videos appearing in the top left or the right, or if I'm very excited, the bottom left as well. And see you soon on my channel.